If you're just diving into the lore of Warhammer 40,000, you've probably already been fed the fairy tale that Khorne isn't just the god of slaughter, but also a noble god of martial honor. Like, he despises killing the weak, values fair one-on-one duels, and is basically some grim cosmic samurai. And you know what? A long time ago, in the older editions of the lore, that was actually true. In a 2004 campaign, there was a story about a warband of unhinged Khornates who boarded a ship and butchered a crowd of defenseless pilgrims. Khorne disliked this so much that as punishment, he fused the Space Marines and their ship into a single giant chunk of squealing meat. This fleshy cube was doomed to eternally emerge from the warp in random places, filling the cosmos with the screams of the traitors welded into its hull. The main rule back then was, if you want to kill an unarmed man, at least give him a knife. But let's be real, the current blood god is no noble knight. He's more like a harsh, perpetually drunk dad who just has a favorite toy. Listen to this brilliant story. Once, Khorne's elite generals, including Skarbrand himself, decided to wage war on Slaanesh's realm. And to guarantee victory, they secretly snuck Khorne's favorite pet out of his inner sanctum, a giant brass scorpion the size of a freaking solar system. The scorpion started cheerfully devouring greater demons of pleasure until Slaanesh personally stepped out of the palace with a whip and began atomizing the Khornate demons. Just as her hand reached out to crush the brass scorpion, the heavens suddenly split open. Khorne's gigantic hand appeared, slapped Slaanesh's hand away, grabbed the scorpion, which at that moment was literally squeaking, "Dad, they're hitting me!" And with a mental shout of, "What are you doing with my toy?" dragged it back into his chambers. As for all his generals and demons who were hoping for divine backup, Khorne just left them there to die. Nobody escaped. So that's your new boss. He doesn't give a damn about any of you. All he wants is blood, skulls, and for no one to touch his metal bug. Welcome to the Eightfold Path. Here is your 8-step career ladder. You think that if you worship Khorne, your destiny is to rip off your shirt, grab a rusty axe, and run screaming straight into the barrels of heavy bolters? Wrong. Khorne is the god of war, and war requires logistics. At the first level, you get recruited into the Blood Pact. This is a highly organized cult that originated millennia ago on the planet Gura, and they fight just as well as the elite of the Imperial Guard. They have a chain of command, communication networks, officers, and even heavy armor like AT-70 Reaver tanks and Lightwalkers known as stock tanks. There is no blind madness here. Blood Pact soldiers sit in trenches, use snipers and lasguns, proving that Khorne absolutely approves of militarism and strict tactical calculation. To join their ranks, you must pass an initiation with the warlord Orlok Gore. A recruit must ritually slash their palms on the jagged edges of his battle armor to prove their loyalty. And yes, they have Gore mages. Khorne hates classic sorcery, but these guys use blood magic to possess soldiers with demonic spirits, turning them into unstoppable berserkers. You are a cog in a perfectly tuned machine of slaughter. You've proven your efficiency, survived a bunch of battles, and earned a promotion. You become a Chaos Space Marine in the World Eater's Legion. Everyone already knows that at this stage, they hammer the butcher's nails into your skull. Archaeotech implants that replace part of your brain drive you insane and force you to experience unbearable agony until you dismember someone. That's basic knowledge. But here's what lore videos rarely talk about. What happens if you're a psyker? If you are a librarian of the World Eaters, the butcher's nails are a death sentence for you. The aggressive impulses of the implant are absolutely incompatible with the psychic gift. Right after the first surgeries, the librarians' heads literally began to explode from the overloads, or they died from sudden brain embolisms. Attempts to extract the nails also resulted in death. Eventually, the remaining psychers of the Legion refused the implantation and became outcasts among their own brothers, until every last one of them died trying to stop their Primarch Angren's demonic ascension on Nuceria. Chaos does not tolerate nerds in the ranks of its shock troops. Furthermore, forget the stereotype that world eaters are drooling and moaning 24/7. If that were true, who would fly their spaceships? The Legion has its own berserker surgeons apothecaries who perform incredibly complex neurosurgeries to implant the nails. Outside of active combat, many of them are capable of cold calculation and logic. They only let the madness off the leash when it's tactically advantageous. Let's say you screwed up, or you just caught a warpsmith on a bad day. In the Imperium, you'd be turned into a servitor. With Khorne, things are much more fun. You get recycled into a demon engine. This isn't just a tank, it's a blasphemous fusion of metal and demonic rage. A warpsmith performs a ritual, forcibly dragging a demonic entity or your own tortured soul straight into the glowing hot chassis of a Lord of Skulls or a brass scorpion. The corruption instantly spreads through all the circuits and gears. The machine gains consciousness, and this consciousness experiences an endless, unquenchable thirst for blood. Khorne's demon engines are so aggressive and uncontrollable that outside of battle, they have to be kept on giant chains. Otherwise, they'll grind every living thing within a mile radius into mincemeat, not caring who is friend or foe. You become a very expensive, very angry excavator running on pure hatred whose mere presence brings ordinary humans to their knees in terror. If you still manage to stay in your own body and achieve success, your direct supervisor becomes Kharn the Betrayer, and he is an incredibly motivated Gigachad. Kharn is so powerful that he surpasses many demon princes, even though he remains mortal. In the current lore, the Arcs of Omen campaign, he single-handedly stormed an ancient Imperial battleship. 130 Space Marines, including 30 Ultramarine Terminators, were waiting for a single boarding torpedo, thinking they would easily fend it off. The ramps opened, and a second later, a holographic message from a captain cut in half echoed across the ship. "Run, it's Kharn!" Kharn slaughtered every single one of them, reached the Admiral, tore him to pieces, recorded his dying screams, and put them on an endless loop over the ship's voxcasters. But the most hilarious indicator of Kharn's badassery is his brawl with Abaddon the Despoiler. Once Abaddon came to Kharn and started talking to him like a dog. "You mad hound of Khorne, I throw you a bone, go and kill for me." Kharn didn't answer, his body just twitched, and he silently lunged to chop the War Master of Chaos's face off. And here the true nature of weaponry in Warhammer is revealed. Abaddon wields Draknian, the sword of the first murder, the doom of the human race, a blade that tears empires apart, and Kharn just has an ancient chain axe. But with every strike of the axe against the sword, the great demonic blade Draknian squealed, screamed, and tried to escape. All the magical, pompous power of primordial murder cowered before the absolutely pure, crystal clear, primal butchery that Kharn embodies. Kharn unleashed a frantic attack, caught the demonic sword with his kidney to lock it in place, and was already raising his axe for a fatal blow to Abaddon's head. The main villain of the setting was only saved because a gigantic bloodthirster literally fell from the sky and pinned Kharn to the ground with its hoof. Now let's add a pinch of family drama worthy of a soap opera. If you think the Chaos Gods treat everyone equally, you're wrong. Khorne adores Kharn, so much so that Kharn is the only mortal in the universe whose trophies get their own dedicated personal pile of skulls before the Skull Throne. And you know who this pisses off the most? Kharn's own father, the demonic Primarch Angron. During the Siege of Terra, Angron completely lost his mind out of jealousy. Encountering his son, Angron delivered an incredibly tragic line. "Kharn, you have no idea how much he loves you. If I kill you, Kharn, is it possible that his gaze will finally turn away from you?" And after that, the giant demon prince started chasing his own son around, hoping to murder him just so the blood god would pay attention to him. Kharn literally had to run for his life from his own dad. Fast forward to the current lore, the Arcs of Omen campaign, the Imperium once again decided it was the smartest guy in the room. Inquisitor Gloria Amagda found ancient archaeotech on the planet Malakbaled and decided to turn it into a coral engine, a localized astronomicon. The only problem? This thing ran on live humans. Psychers were strapped into special cradles where they burned out in apocalyptic agony over 3-5 days to fuel the beacon, after which fresh ones were tossed into the furnace. The Inquisitor flipped the switch. The machine emitted a beam of light so blinding that warp storms dissipated and chaos forces across the entire sector started spontaneously combusting and exploding. But this bright, searing beacon light struck Angron's brain on the other side of the galaxy. The Red Angel went ballistic. He gathered a colossal armada, the greatest since the Horus Heresy, and split it into a perfect trident, while a giant arc of Omen rammed planetary defenses, causing tsunamis and shifting magnetic fields. Angron himself broke through right into the center of the Imperial formation aboard his flagship. What he pulled off next is pure cinema. Angron leaped out of his ship straight into the void of space. Using his own body like an artillery shell, he punched straight through an escort destroyer and teleported right onto the bridge of the Imperial flagship. His mere presence caused such warp pressure that gravity broke, the crew's blood geysered upward, and the fleet commander exploded in a second, leaving only a perfectly flayed skeleton on the command throne. And here comes the climax. Angron tears through millions of defenders, leaving his sons to die under the crossfire of titans, and bursts into the sanctum of the coral engine. Dozens of Grey Knights pile onto him. They shoot him with psi cannons, pelt him with grenades, and smash him with nemesis daemon hammers. But then the unbelievable happens. When Angron absorbs the searing, concentrated light of the beacon, the light of the Emperor himself, this light burns the corruption out of his brain. For a fraction of a second, the butcher's nails fall silent. For the first time in 10,000 years, Angron hears silence. The pain vanishes, the anger disappears. In that single instant, crystal clear sanity returns to the daemonic Primarch, and he realizes one simple thing: he doesn't want to die, he just wants peace. But the Chaos Gods have other plans. Behind Angron in the warp, the figure of Khorne himself rises. The Blood God gathers the fury of trillions of deaths across the galaxy and strikes with a blade capable of cleaving space and time. This blow passes through Angron, using him as a conduit, and shatters the coral engine to splinters. Angron dissolves into nothingness, praying that this death will finally be permanent, but the warp just spits him back out into reality, forcing the nails to pound with renewed vigor. The destruction of the beacon births the murder curse. A wave of Khorne's pure fury washes over the sector. Loyal space marines and fanatical sisters of battle instantly go insane. Their eyes fill with blood, and they start tearing out the hearts of their own comrades, reveling in the... But what awaits you at the very end? You died. No more orders, no more pain. Darkness? Good morning, employee. Welcome to the Brass Citadel. Your soul falls into the warp, and you respawn as a bloodletter, a horned, hunched, red-skinned daemon wielding a hellblade. Khorne's domain isn't just fields of bones. The realm itself is alive and aggressive. The heavens constantly wage war against the earth. Bloody lightning strikes from the sky, and volcanoes respond by erupting streams of molten brass burning the clouds. You stand on the shore of a river of boiling blood miles wide that sucks in daydreaming demons. Your job hasn't changed. You stand in a formation in multiples of 8, waiting to be sent back to the real world. But on weekends, you get corporate entertainment. Once, the orc warboss Tuska Demon Killa purposely flew into the Eye of Terror just to pick a fight. And Khorne enjoyed this pure, unadulterated orc joy of battle so much that he resurrects Tuska and his boys every morning at the walls of the Citadel, so you can butcher each other for all eternity. Because Because in Khorne's system, there are no promotions, no retirement, no victory. You are merely fuel for a god who will sit on a throne of skulls and wait until the galaxy burns in 8 apocalyptic ages of war. Blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. Smash that like button as fiercely as Angron punches through a battleship hull, and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, in the next battle, you'll be the one getting the butcher's nails.